You're listening to Drummer Daily. This is episode number 140. I am your host, Daniel Hadaway, aka the Drum Coach, and I want to welcome you in for more exciting drum talk. Gather around the warm fireplace of drumming knowledge. I don't know. I just made that up on the spot, in case you couldn't tell. Hey, but speaking of episode numbers, in case you didn't know, as of maybe, I think right around episode 120, maybe somewhere a little more recent than that. But any more recent episodes of this podcast, I have show notes or links and all kinds of stuff. Anything we talk about in an episode, you can always find over on my website just by going to danielhadaway.com/ and then the episode number. So the notes for this episode, if there are any, will be at danielhadaway.com/140. So that's an easy way to always know if you think, hey, you mentioned that piece of gear, I don't know what that was. And instead of having to go back and rewind the episode of the podcast and try to figure out what it was that I said, you can just say, oh, you know, that was episode 140 that I'm listening to. So let me just go over there and go to danielhadaway.com/140 and find that out. So that's why I tell you what episode number it is at the beginning of the episode, so that you can know what we're talking about and where to find out about it if you want to. All right, so today I've got another awesome listener question that was written in. This one comes from Edmond, and he says, so my burning question is, as a teenager, how do I find the people that make a band, how do I find the people to make a band with or play music with? I'm kind of stuck because my friends don't really want to, and I'm a naturally shy person, so the idea of going out and finding people terrifies me. Any advice? Well, Edmund, that is a great question, and let me tell you that I personally, if you can tell on this podcast, I'm not actually a shy person, but I definitely don't think I enjoy going out and doing what you're describing any more than you would, which is I would not enjoy just going out and being like, talking to strangers, hey, you want to be in a band with me, or whatever it is. And so I personally don't have any experience of starting a band with strangers. So doing what you're talking about specifically, or what you're describing, I don't have any experience as far as doing that, but I do have experience in a couple of other things that might apply to what you're talking about. The first thing is this: I've always had, one or two friends that know that I play drums, even when I was younger and didn't know anybody and just moved to a new city. I was a teenager when I moved to Nashville and didn't know anybody. I had a couple of friends always, or people that I knew that knew me better than others, and they knew that I played drums. And they might suggest me for something, or know somebody and suggest me for something. And so you definitely don't want to, I know as a teenager it's different too. Like as an adult, it's easy for me to like go to a friend and be like, hey, I'd love to be in a band. So if you happen to meet anybody who wants to be in a band, let them know that I'm doing it. That feels more comfortable to me as an adult, and I'm trying to place myself back in a teenage mindset. And I know that doesn't necessarily sound very exciting as a teenager, or it may not, especially if you're naturally shy anyway. Even going to your friends and saying, hey, keep your eye open for gigs or whatever, doesn't necessarily sound like the most fun thing in the world to do. But it's good to know at least that your friends that you do have, even if they don't want to be in a band with you or they can't be in a band with you, it's good to know that they know that you play drums and that you would like to be in a band. So even if you happen to ask, your friends don't want to do it, and you know they don't want to because you've asked and they said no, you can be encouraged that they still know, and that might be helpful to you down the road. So let me tell you what to do instead, because I don't want to suggest that you go out and I don't like suggesting things to people that I wouldn't do myself. And so while there might be value in just going out and trying to just approach strangers and say, be in a band with me, there probably is some value in that. But if you don't want to do it, I understand, and I don't want to do it personally either, so I'm not going to suggest that you do it. So what I would do instead, and I don't know if this is the case for you, but you do have to start making strides to put yourself out there. And so the end goal might be, I do believe, right now at least, as I'm recording this podcast in the year 2017, that social media is valuable to musicians, and it is valuable to drummers for finding gigs and connecting with people who might want to play in a band with you, or might want to hire you to play music, even as a teenager. So the end goal is going to be for you to establish yourself on social media somewhere that you are a drummer. And don't worry about the fact that there's so many others out there doing it. There's lots of opportunity still. If someone connects with your type of playing, your style of playing, it doesn't matter how many other drummers there are, because you're the one that person wants to work with or wants to be in a band with. So don't let that scare you. And also, I know that the idea, if you're naturally a shy person, the idea of putting yourself out there right now seems impossible and seems ridiculous and not something that you want to do. And so I don't want you to start there. I want you to know that you're working your way towards that, but I don't want you to do it before you're ready. So what I would suggest as a starting point is, if you're already doing stuff on social media, then great. But I'm going to guess that you're not. And so what I would suggest you do is something that I suggest all of my students do through my Pro Drum Academy that I've done. I've had some live classes that we've done there. My one-on-one drum intensives. Every student that I have, I always at some point end up suggesting that they start the process of videoing themselves. So I used to say videotape yourself, but it's not. I mean, that's not a senior citizen when I say videotape yourself now. Video yourself. So get your phone or whatever, out, whatever you've got, your smartphone, whatever it is, and record yourself playing drums. It might be, but the idea with this is this. It might just be you sitting down playing drums for 5 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever it is. The idea at this point is not to put it anywhere, not to post it anywhere. It's just for you to have. And you can delete it once you're done. But basically walk through baby steps of actually putting yourself out there. And the first thing is getting used to seeing yourself play drums. Just like people who sing or people who talk. When I started this this is not true about starting this podcast, but when I did some voiceover work a long time ago, out of necessity, not because I really wanted to or have that amazing of a voice, but I did it because I was in a situation where I had to do it for something I was doing. And it took a long time for me to get used to the sound of my own voice being played back to me through recording. Same way, you're going to have to get used to the sound and the look of you playing drums, looking at it from an outside perspective. So the best thing to do is to just get started going down that path. Basically, desensitize yourself to the sight of yourself doing that stuff. And eventually you'll get used to it, and then you can move on to the next step, which is, maybe you'll share it with some friends or post it to your personal Facebook page personal Facebook, whatever it is, account, whatever. But kind of walk yourself through that slowly. Get yourself out there a little bit. And then another thing to do, that I've not done this personally, but I've seen it work for other people. I actually know some people this has worked for, is how like on Instagram you can location tag, where you're at when you're, posting this video or whatever. Well, you can location tag something somewhere other than where you're actually sitting when you post it. So maybe even if you're not comfortable going out in public to a club or whatever, and talking to musicians or whatever it is, however it is you think you might have, you're imagining you have to do it. Maybe post a video to Instagram someday and post it, but location tag it for a show that's happening at a club in town. Location tag it at that club at the time that show's happening or somewhere around that. But the show would be artists that play similar music to what you want to do in a band. Because the people who are going to be there are going to be into that kind of music, and they're going to be, there's going to be musicians in that crowd going to see shows. And so even if you don't want to go out and meet strangers, you could post something that's location tagged there. And then even in your post, if you want to, you could say, hey, I'm looking for some guys to play in a band with, music similar to, and then list some of the bands that are playing at that show. And then later on, when people who went to that show or missed out on that show and they're kicking themselves that they missed it, are looking back on Instagram and they're Instagram stalking that location to see all the videos and photos from that show, they're also going to see you playing drums, and you're going to be saying, hey, I want to play in a band that's like this. And they're going to say, hey, I want to play in a band like that too. This guy plays drums, looks pretty cool. I'm going to contact this guy. So that's kind of the way that I might do something like that. That can work for people. It has worked for people that I know. So maybe try that out. But those are just a couple of ideas. I know it's tough in this day and age. Back when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, there was no other option. I didn't have the ability to post things online as far as drumming goes. And so I pretty much was stuck. If I wanted to be in a band with somebody, I had to get to know them personally and go walk up to strangers, those kinds of things, which, like I said, I did not like doing either. I wasn't shy per se, but I definitely didn't like doing that kind of stuff either. So I definitely can imagine being someone who might be naturally a little more shy. That seems like the worst thing in the world. So hopefully the ideas that I shared with you today helped you out. Hey, that was a great question. Thank you so much for writing in and asking. And if anyone else, if you want to write in a question and have me answer it on the podcast, just go to danielhadaway.com, click on the contact button, or scroll down on that homepage. I believe there's a form right there on that homepage. Either way, you can find a way to reach me, or you can just email me, daniel@danielhadaway.com, and I'll be happy to answer your question in an upcoming episode of Drummer Daily. All right, thanks for joining me today. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.